So, welcome everybody to an audience with Kashmir. We're here with the man himself to chat about all things music and some very special, really special projects. So,
Yeah.
I guess as an intro, who are you and when and how did you start out?
So I started out when I was quite young. I was maybe 11 years old or so. And I didn't know a thing about music or chords. I was actually really quite a nerd, and I was making games in Flash back then. It was called
Oh,
Macromedia Flash.
yeah.
I we bought it. And I was making little games, and I wanted to put music to the game. So I would take loops that you could find online. And then in Flash, you could put these loops over each other. And this was the birth of me making music. I thought I had like made music because I simply put two loops over each other. And that led me to Acid, which at the time was by Sonic Foundry. Now it's by Sony. So I'm just dating myself with all these company names. And in Acid, I just did more of the same. I mean, I put loops over each other, and I bought this thing called the JB1010 by Roland, which had synth sounds in it. And then I, got a MIDI keyboard. And now I was starting to actually learn chords, things like that. I got a chord chart up on my wall. And everything was quite slow because we didn't have the internet. So there wasn't a tutorial like the basics of music theory, or wasn't a tutorial like how to make sidechain. I mean, it was probably 6 years into producing, I even knew what the hell sidechain was, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that led me to basically make beats for everybody at school. I went to school with a lot of people who rapped, and they would come over to my mom's house, and that was the studio, and I charged them $25 an hour, and or geez, maybe it was like $10 an hour back then. And I was probably using the money to buy weed or whatever. And uh, I had a group called the Cataracts, and we gained a little bit of popularity, especially in high school, and then after we graduated with kids who still went to Berkeley High School, and then we started to fill up shows, and we could sell out shows, and we got somewhat popular and got a song on the radio, and we took that momentum and we moved down to Los Angeles, where all of a sudden we were really small fish in a big pond, and I was doing pretty bad. I mean, I was living in a little apartment, a house that was really a pool house that they had thrown a bathroom in, that was the size of a coffin or so. It was so small. The shower is so tiny. You had to like fit in the shower, and it was real small. Everyone likes to talk about their humble beginnings, so this is my little spiel. And it was in this little pool house where I was just working with whoever I could, and I was living off of a Subway sandwich a day for $5. And these guys came in called the Far East Movement, and I produced a song for them, like a G6, which became a really big hit. It took about, a year before that song really charted. So after we made the song, it was just back to normal, and no one knew what was going to happen. And then it hit radio, and it did okay. And then somehow it just got this huge, thrust of momentum, and it shot up to #1 and became #1 in all these different countries. And that put me and my partner David, who co-wrote the song with me, we were now these like pop hit producers, quote unquote. So they put us in the room with big guys like Justin Bieber or Jason Derulo, and it was sort of a mixed bag of what worked and what didn't, because we were Bay Area hip hop guys, and Like a G6 was, a bit of a fluke, and I really had to learn my chops as a pop producer. A lot of the early sessions went very poorly. And then later, I kind of found my stride, and I worked with Enrique, and me and Enrique Iglesias, we ended up doing most of his last album together. It was me and a couple of friends who all turned out to be Bay Area guys. So we had this great chemistry. And around this time, somewhere in between, the Cataracts broke up, and David and I, it was starting to become a lot about the producing side as opposed to the artist side and what we were doing. So in between was me and Dev's relationship, who sang Like a G6, and me and David's relationship, who I was in the Cataracts with. It all it fell apart a little bit, and I was left to start over. And when I started over, I started Kashmir, and that's what I do now, which is dance music. And on my way into dance music, I did a little ghost producing at first, where I would produce songs for other people just as the producer behind the scenes. And a couple of those songs did really, really well and became big hits. So that gave me the confidence to go full force into dance music, starting Kashmir, which the name comes from the fact that I'm Kashmiri. My dad and that side of the family are from Kashmir, which is this region above India, or part of India, depending who you ask. And that is kind of what led me here today. I worked my ass off as Kashmir and just made so many songs. A lot of them were crap, but then a lot of them did well and became hits on Beatport, and some of them did really phenomenally well, like Secrets with Tiesto and Wild Card and Power and some of these sort of big room hits. And on my own now with quarantine over the last 2 years, I've been working on this new album, which is about to, well, the first song is about to come out in just a couple days, which is amazing, the first single, and then the album will come out shortly after that. So this is the culmination of about 2 years of work, and I think it's the best music I've ever done, and I really couldn't be happier at the moment. So I'm in a good place creatively.
That's amazing. And I've known the Far East Movement guys for quite some time. So what's up
Yeah,
to
cool
James
guy.
and Kev and Verman
Yeah,
and
hard work.
everybody out there for sure. When did you know that music could be more than a passion? Like when did it kind of become, let's say, your full-time gig, so to speak? Was there a turning point? Was it
I
a
was
gradual growth?
I was so delusional that I just always thought it was gonna work, because I knew that I wanted to do it all the time, and I would come home, I would skip school, I would leave school early in some cases. I'd come home, just get right to working on music, and so I just felt that if I could do this so relentlessly that eventually it was gonna work out for me. I I guess it became evident that it was really possible when a song got on the radio locally. Um, that felt like breaking through this huge barrier of I could really do this. I could, like the music in some cases is good enough, to work on a massive scale. So I remember the first time a song got played on the radio, we were in touch with one of the DJs at the local station over MySpace, and he had his 1 hour segment where he could play whatever he wanted. And he said he was going to play our song. We'd messaged back and forth on MySpace. So we got in the car, and, I think we were probably smoking blunts, and we were just, waiting for it to come on with bated breath. And when it came on, it was like, we had already made it at that point. It was like, we did it, and that was, that was, I guess, the first big moment for us, hearing it on the radio.
Wow. And so we live in an era, right, where music is truly accessible. Today's kids and teenagers have access to tools that were exclusive just even a couple of years ago. How do you think the widespread accessibility of music tools has really changed the relationship? Has it changed the relationship of music creators, you think?
Yes. I mean, so first of all, the threshold of entry is a lot lower now. So you see a lot of people coming in and producing, and, some of the veteran guys will be annoyed by that because everybody thinks they can make beats now and be a producer who picks up Fruity Loops or whatever. And I think it's an inevitability. I mean, I've always gone with the philosophy that I want to share what I know. I want to share my sounds with other people. And I don't think that means that they are going to replace you. It just means that you have to keep up, and you have to carve out your own space. And it's a good thing ultimately that more people have access to information. And it means that, artists who never would have thought of themselves as creative people will blossom and offer the world something really great. I mean, that's the positive of it. The annoying part of it is just like, yeah, I mean, sometimes you have shithead kids who, don't know what they're talking about. And they, they come onto the scene, and you know, the music is crap. And although I do have this sort of altruistic philosophy about I want everyone to make music, I mean, I also listen to a lot of music and I think that's crap. You know, happens all the time. So, you know, I mean, we're flooded with people who maybe when the barrier was, you've got to want this, like you need air to breathe. You've got to want to be an artist. Like, you know, you got a lot of people now who are just like, I kind of make music, and, you know, and maybe they have some song on SoundCloud that blows up, and you're like, you little piece of shit, you know, but hey, that's life, you know. And
Yeah, for sure.
if you can carve out your own space, I don't think you need to be upset about, people overnight flash in the pan kind of people. You don't need to get upset.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What kind of advice would you give to a younger artist trying to break through?
So, you know, a lot of people look at me and think, you're a DJ, so how do I break into DJing? And the first piece of advice I give them is to not focus on DJing at all, really, to just focus on producing. And if you produce and you make songs that people love, then you can go out and you can DJ your own music, which is it's so much more valuable than just DJing, you know, other tracks, and it's so much more rewarding. So I would say really focus on producing, and, you know, emulating in the beginning is something that all of us do. So my favorite producers like Timbaland and Dr. Dre, I would try to make tracks that sound like their tracks, and I think that's okay because you learn a lot in the process. But there should come a point where, if, you know, the only way you really break through is by doing something that other people don't do. And that's a bit cliche and everybody knows that, but it helps to, one, have other people around you that as you are trying to make something in your mind that's as good as other producers, they'll stop you and they'll notice a quote unquote mistake that you made. And they'll say, no, that was actually really great. Because your personality comes out whether you wanted to or not in the decisions you make while producing. So sometimes our personality is coming out and we say, oh, but that doesn't sound as good as other people. And then we end up killing something that's actually unique about us. So to have people around you who are listening to music, not as a producer, but just as a, you know, first impression listener of music, they can stop you and be like, no, wait, that sounds really great. And that was the case with G6. I remember G6 was sort of a mistake where I took the melody from a synth sound and dragged the MIDI over to the bass, and all of a sudden the bass started playing the melody, and that ended up, everyone in the room was really crazy about it, and I was like, oh shit, maybe this was a good idea, not a mistake at all. And I think it applies in a lot of cases to producers because we're in the forest so much that, you know, we don't really see the bigger picture of it, and we want to correct things, and we want to keep on editing and editing and editing. So to keep people around you that are a way of giving you feedback when you connect on something. And when something connects, you should follow that path and you should see where it goes. Oftentimes I find that the way you can make unique music or unique ideas and put them out into the world generally is you don't have to create the wheel over again. You don't have to create something revolutionary. You can just take two ideas that are seemingly disconnected and put those together. So when you think about your own personality, if you were a lover of Bollywood music growing up, and now you're a lover of house music, if you could just find a way to put those two things together, now we're getting an insight into your personality, which is a mixture of all kinds of things, and no one else has maybe put those together. I mean, in that case they have, you know, but if you can look at your personality and the different things that make up you and your taste and put them together, it's as simple as sometimes just taking two seemingly disconnected ideas. That can be genius in itself.
That's great advice. It's been a crazy year, like this past year for all of us. Did you, what did you expect to achieve at the beginning, and how did you work around what we all kind of experienced just kind of through living life last year?
Sure. So touring came to a complete halt, and honestly, touring is already sort of a tough issue for me because I love being home and working on music. So although touring pays the bills, I'm always trying to fit in more time to be home. And it's always a tough decision to say, well, I could spend a week at home, or I could take the show, make X amount of money. And well, shit, what if I stay at home and I don't make anything that sounds good at all, you know? And then I lost all that money. So you're constantly in this mind game of, you know, if you want to stay home, you're basically making a bet on yourself. Maybe it's a $20,000 bet on yourself, or a $100,000 bet that you're making on yourself. And then what if that week you're just no good creatively? And, you know, so it's a tough decision to make. And quarantine took that decision out of the process. There is no decision. You have to stay home. And that was so liberating for me. I got so much time at home to just work on music. And it made this album possible because I was able to really explore and experiment creatively. Whereas if you're just fitting time in between shows, you almost feel irresponsible to explore and experiment. You kind of look for the lowest hanging fruit. Okay, what's a song that I could put out, I could get done in the course of this week that is going to, you know, inch the needle on my career, as opposed to, well, maybe I won't make anything good for this week, but I'll learn and I'll experiment. That is what the quarantine afforded me. I really dived and went down the rabbit hole on a lot of the music you find on the album. And I think it paid off big.
So you talk about this album, I mean, you mentioned it twice now. What can you give us some more details on what that album is going to be? When is it coming out?
I love talking about the album. So the album is, in my mind, before you even get to the music, is about this kid who sets off on this journey after his mom dies. And he has some cryptic instructions from her that don't quite make sense. And it leads him to a forest, and it leads him to this carnival, and it leads him to just on a big journey trying to sort it all out. And really all his mom wanted from him was to go live life and experience life on his own. So he finds, in one song, he finds himself in the forest, meeting this guy, the Moon King, and the sort of sonic texture of it is, you know, how could I say? It's just kind of weird and wonky, and has various sections that in themselves are super catchy hooks, but it's not like singles you find in dance music. There's like 2 or 3 that really qualify as like a catchy single for dance music, but in most cases, it's more about putting you in a particular world. There's another world that, like I mentioned before, is this carnival, and it's narrated by this crazy carnival host who brings you into it, and then you go into the depths of it, and it gets darker. And most of the songs really don't have synths, or the synths are really much more in the back, and it's all focused on real instruments. And I had to really push myself to, you know, use real instruments in a way that hits as hard as dance music as is expected to. But it's really not the 128 region, the big room region. There's really no big room except for One More Round, which made its way on because that was the song that I just released before the album, and it, you know, was a success. So, okay, we're putting this one on the album. But there's really no big room at all, and it's really more about exploring tempos that I would want to listen to in a car ride. And there's some of these songs that are such a journey all in one song. You start out, there's this amazing song, it's one of the last ones on the album, starts out with just this tiny little voice, like a bump, bop, 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 and it's just a little tiny voice with a bass line, and then it grows a little bit, and it grows a little bit, and then this African choir comes in, and then it grows even more, and before you know it, it's built up into like these African guys singing this super catchy hook, and it's like the Lion King, and then by the end of the song, it's like this fucking huge celebration of like the Lion King meets like disco, and you wound up in just a completely different place than you started. And I've been producing for a long time, and I always liked, oh, what if I did something really crazy here? But I don't think my skill level had really caught up to me. And even now with the album, I don't know if my skill level is even the skill level of the album. I was only able to achieve the album by trying every possible thing. You know, I'd say, wow, it would be really cool if it went to this African choir. And then logistically, you know, even with the music theory and everything I know, I was like really struggling to make it work, but I would just do 30 versions until it fucking worked. So I almost look at the album as like much bigger and more skillful than I am, because I would just try every possible thing and then I would just stumble on the thing that worked. But I had the vision each time. It was just, I really hope it takes other producers less time to get there, because it takes me so long to get there. But with all the time I'm afforded by quarantine, I was just able to follow these rabbit holes and create songs that just have so much depth that it's really a journey to listen to, even a single song in some cases. And this is all going to sound very arrogant, and I got in trouble for a sort of arrogant tweet that I wrote online. I got in trouble for, but I can't help it, and it's hard to explain, but I just don't even really look at the album as me. It's just become its own thing.
You're basically telling a story through this project. It's really cool.
Yeah, in my mind, there is absolutely story, and how you hear it, who knows? But there's certainly enough in a lot of these songs to imagine a whole story, which is sort of the moment that I wait for in songs when I start seeing a world around it. Like, at first, I'm just dragging in a loop or putting on drums, and at some point, it's like it's taken on its own life, and I see the world, and it's just my job not to fuck up the world. It's like I've stumbled on a piece of culture that feels true, as Hemingway would say. It feels true. It feels genuine. It doesn't feel engineered or artificial, you know, and when you stumble on that, then you say, okay, I've got to keep this, something's beautiful about this. I've got to not overcook it, and I've got to not overthink it, and try to stay in the mindset that caught me when I realized there was something beautiful about it.
Got it. Do you have any features that help you tell that story as it kind of unfolds as you're going track to track?
Yeah, so Kara, who's my absolute favorite singer at the moment and songwriter, I worked with her on. She's featured on, I think it's 3 songs, and she is just such a friend, and her voice is so amazing, and any producer will understand what I mean. I got her in a room, and she was up for it. I had her record just little bits on everything, everywhere, and it was like a dream come true. And when I say producers know what I mean, it's because as a producer, the one thing you don't have is, and you can't fake, is the human voice. And a beautiful female human voice scattered all over your music is just like a dream come true. And you find all kinds of places that it works. And another guy who helped me out was Zafrir, who's a dear friend in Israel. And this guy can get together all kinds of people. He'll get together, you know, a group of children to sing. He'll get together some of those African vocals that I was talking about earlier. And he was just willing to help, and God bless him. This guy's got brass, just nuts of steel. What was it? Balls of steel. In one case, he needed a crowd to sing something. So he's in Israel, he's in his town, and he goes to the local theater where everyone just got finished watching a play. And he stops everybody before they leave in the crowd. And he says, people, if you could for me do just one favor and sing this melody. He got his microphone with him. And he got a crowd of fucking, 200 people or whatever to sing this melody that he ended up using in a song. And I just respect the guy so much. I've watched him do videos where he goes through guitars and he goes through harps and he just plays everything. He's kind of the best kept secret. He's incredible.
That's amazing.
Moody works with me. Just showed up.
Hey Moody, how you doing? What's the album called?
I'm not revealing it quite yet. Interview coming out.
Okay.
When's the interview? When is this interview coming out?
This comes out off the record, I think next week in NAMM.
Oh, that's fine then. The album's called Harmonica Andromeda.
Cool. What label is it going to be on?
It's going to be through Spinnin', through my label Dharma, which is an imprint on Spinnin'.
Oh, okay. And I've heard something about a Dharma studio. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So Dharma Studio is the website for Dharma, and
Mm,
it's more than just a label where we tell you what releases we have. It's a hub for producers. So you get tutorials from me. I love talking, as you could tell. So I talk on there and I do tutorials, and we do sample packs and we do templates and really everything that producers could use. The sound packs, my sound packs, the Sounds of Kashmir ones, those are on there. My plugin Kashmir Essentials, which is like a one-stop shop for vocal chains and synth chains, things like that. That's on there. So Dharma Studio is basically a place for learning and to for grabbing tools. Yeah.
that's cool. Um, we also heard you got a new side project. Can you tell us a little more about Dreams and how you decided to start it?
Sure. So Dream sort of came about after, making songs that didn't quite fit for Kashmir, but I had been making so much, Kashmir focused music that it was fun to make some sort of poppier stuff and stuff that's a little less high energy focused, and wasn't quite sure what the home should be for that. So Dreams came about, and Dreams is something that I have more songs for. I'm going to keep working on, but really at the moment I'm just focused on the Kashmir album. But there is going to be another Dream single that is going to come out when some of this clears up. So that's just a fun place to do stuff that is in a way almost the opposite of Kashmir music, which has always been cinematic and sort of intense and serious, and then Dreams is just the other side of me, I guess, which is, just like a, sleepy, chilling sort of guy.
That's really cool. Other than the album, what does 2021 hold for you?
Well, God willing, they'll be touring in the latter half of it. And it would be really great to go and perform the album for people live. So I'm really hoping that I get the opportunity to do that. But really, mostly in the near term, it's enough to just be focused on the album. I think I look at the album as sort of a turning point for me to kind of reestablish where I want to go with music. Um, I guess I'm known as the big room guy, which is really fun for a long time, and I still do love big room music. But I am getting older, and I found myself listening to my own songs less and less on my own time. Like they didn't really quite fit the mood that I was in. So the album is much more where I want to go with music, and I guess beyond the album, it's sort of fulfilling the promise that the album makes of where I'm taking my music. I guess that would be how I look at the rest of 2021, and giving people like a great, live experience. Again, knock on wood, but every couple of years, I redo the live show with a new animated story. So in my live show from the very first one, there's been this animated story that when the show begins, you get introduced to, and then 20 minutes in, you get the second act of the story, and then so on. By the end, the final act of the story is intertwined with the final song that I play. And I just really love the kind of show that creates. And it gives you a reason to be there from beginning to end. And it gives this context and this weight to each song. And when the narrative ends and, something epic happens, right? And then the guy says, we have work to do or something. And then the song kicks in and it's just, it feels very satisfying. And to be able to give people music with that sort of added drama has been really fun. And we've got this new story that it's done being animated. And it's the best animation we've ever done. It's just like really stellar looking animation that we did with this team called Resonate. It's a great animation studio out in New York. And it's just, I just can't wait to show that to people and to, show the album to people.
Man, that sounds super exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. Oh,
Well,
also,
yeah.
also on the producer side, because this is a producer thing, we're working on Sounds of Kashmir Volume 4, mostly me and Moody, who's behind me. And it's a lot. I mean, these packs take a lot, but it is underway. And so it's going to be the biggest and the best, of course, one yet. And we did we did a ton of recording and just recorded all kinds of crazy instruments. So I'm just really excited about the new pack as well. As soon as this album is done, we're going to be full force into Sounds of Kashmir Volume 4.
So for those who aren't producers, can you share a little bit more about what that is? Like, let's say someone's watching this for the very first time, trying to get to know what does a sample pack mean?
Sure. So when you're producing, you start out with a blank page, and there's a few ways to get started. One of them is synths, and synths are, you picking up a keyboard and you playing notes in. And the other is samples, and samples are a recording of, let's say, a drum kit, a snare, and a kick, just to keep it basic. And you can drag in these samples, and now you've got a and these come in all different shapes and sizes. There's more kicks than you could possibly imagine. There's billions that all kinds of producers have made for other producers to use in their productions. And if you go beyond kicks and snares, you can get into instruments like a recording of a violin, or you can get into basses and everything that makes up a song. There are packs that offer you versions of these sounds for you to use in your own production. To assemble in a way that's unique to you and make your own unique song out of it. So the Sounds of Kashmir Volume 1 was a real basic toolkit that I originally made for myself. And then because of my great relationship with Splice from the beginning, we decided to do the pack on their site. And that was Sounds of Kashmir Volume 1. And because of their incredible support, that pack did really well. It led to Volume 2, which got quite bigger. And I went from just the basics to offering people things like ethnic instruments and vocals, things like that. And then it snowballed into Volume 3, which was just absolutely massive. It just increased exponentially in size. These have been, I believe, the biggest, most used, packs on Splice. And it's a lot to live up to, but I think we're going to do it with Volume 4.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Kashmir, for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it, and we're excited to hear that album.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to play it for you. I'll give you a sneak peek as soon as I have a link.
Appreciate it.
Okay, cool,
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. You've been tuned in to An Audience with Kashmir. Catch you guys later. Peace.